Here on Canada's Hudson Bay live the largest land predators on Earth. Covering hundreds of miles hunting on the sea ice, polar bears are normally far from large human settlements. But once a year, they walk to the sea, waiting for the ice to freeze. Unfortunately, this takes them straight through the town of Churchill. Now, a slow freeze-up due to global warming is causing them to wait even longer, and human bear encounters and even deaths are on the rise.
What seemed to me like 3 steps, he was already on me, and then it was using my body as leverage to peel back my scalp. And so there was this moment where I thought, okay, this is the way that I died.
I've come to the north to meet local people who live with the bears, including a guide and photographer who will help us track the polar bears of Churchill.
He is very inquisitive, this bear. Look at that, we get a proper sniff.
No, in the vehicle, please.
Moving around behind the vehicle.
As a biologist, I travel the world through some of the toughest terrain, on a mission to better understand the relationship between humans and some of the biggest and baddest creatures on the planet. I'm Niall McCann, and I'm here in the Canadian subarctic looking for the largest land predator on the planet, the polar bear. Polar bears are the only bears classified as marine mammals and are enormous, standing taller than even the largest Kodiak. The largest ever measured was over 11 feet or 3.39 meters long and weighed some 1,000 kilograms or 2,200 pounds. They are formidable hunters and able to swim and walk hundreds of miles to capture seals at their breathing holes in the ice, their only chance of getting this fat-rich prey. Lately, as Hudson Bay takes longer to freeze, bears have become much more than just a nuisance around human settlements.
Safety is first and foremost. You're mindful of where your kids are all times. You want to make sure that they're safe. You want to make sure that they're provided rides when need be, particularly during bear season.
You always have to be in a group. You can't be alone. If you do go alone, you need a gun or something to protect yourself, and that can be scary sometimes.
And this year, there have been several attacks and 2 widely reported deaths, including this father protecting his kids from a bear on an outing in Arviat, just north of Churchill.
On a remote island, they were confronted by a polar bear. With no weapon nearby, Aaron drew the bear's attention away from his kids.
The question now is, as up to 1,000 bears in the region respond to environmental changes, can these sorts of tragedies be prevented?
Throughout the course of history, humankind has been unwilling to share the landscape with predators that pose a threat to us and to our livestock. As a result of that, species such as lions, tigers, wolves, and bears have been persecuted wherever they have come into contact with human populations. Here in the subarctic, polar bears are top of the food chain. And every year around Halloween, hundreds of them gather here near the Canadian town of Churchill, waiting for the ice to freeze. So I've come here to see how the residents of Churchill have learned to live with the bears in their midst, and to join the Polar Bear Alert team as they translocate a problem bear from the town back into the wild where it belongs. Welcome to Churchill.
Isolated on the frigid shores of Hudson Bay, this is a community like no other.
I'm in the town of Churchill, Manitoba, in the Canadian subarctic, which is known as the polar bear capital of the world. And for good reason, because there's a population of polar bears here that exceeds the human population. Another thing to note about Churchill is that everyone keeps their car doors open, because you never know if there might be a bear just there. So it's useful to know that if someone's car is nearby, I can just open the door and jump in if there happens to be a bear in the vicinity. It's not friendliness, it's just a necessity of life here. Bizarre place, amazing place. Something inherently fascinating about
coming to a town that's at the end of the train line. It's built right on the Hudson Bay, right where the river comes in, just here. And that has created, I suppose, both the greatest problem for the town, but also the greatest opportunity at the same time. Because the bears use that river as a highway to get back into Hudson Bay when it freezes over. The fresh water of the Churchill River is the first to freeze, and bears naturally follow this highway to the sea. Along the way, larger males not only begin to push the younger ones out of their territory, but soon they begin place sparring, or to establish their dominance. And it's exactly this kind of behavior that has brought tourists here with cameras for decades now. Especially after a local tour operator invented the tundra buggy. 3 meters off the ground, this rolling tank of a camera platform takes tourists on the ultimate bucket list trip of a lifetime. And this has presented a double-edged sword for Churchill. The gathering of large predatory bears presents both revenue and a danger to the population of just under 900. Responding to maulings and one death decades ago, Churchill created a polar bear safety program. But bear attacks on the Hudson Bay region are on the rise. Now I want to know what can be done to balance this relationship between people and bears. I'm meeting up with local Tim Franz, who had a very close encounter with a large polar bear just a few nights ago.
So this is where it happened?
Yeah, it was only about 7:45 and came walking just right through here. Snuck up right behind me, pretty close, about 30 feet.
30 feet?
Yeah.
How big was it?
It was about 400 pounder.
So it's 2 strides away from you if it wanted to come at you?
Yeah, had its paw halfway cocked in the air and looking at me, looking at the conservation vehicle that just pulled in front of me, and it was quite a close call. Conservation acted quickly and floored it, and straight down the road they went after him and sent it all the way through town. And
are they becoming more bold coming into town more, or is it seemingly the same?
They're seeming to, more people are saying they're getting too used to humans, but it's hard to say what's the reasoning behind that, because they want to react more, or we're the ones coaxing them to react more.
Yeah, it's funny, and that must be one of the trade-offs with tourism.
Yeah.
A town as small as this absolutely needs the tourism, and it's an amazing thing for tourists to come and see, but inevitably the bears get habituated to people, and that can create more problems.
That's exactly the problem.
Tim was lucky. Throughout the warming Arctic, like here in Russia, polar bears are getting more bold. A policeman had to fire a shot to chase this bear off.
So I've come into this little back alley because, as you'll notice, the river is just there and Hudson Bay is just there. And this is the shortest line distance between the two. And that's a real problem that the people of Churchill are facing, because the bears come down the river, which is frozen, they walk through town, and they congregate on the edge of the bay there, waiting for the ice to form so they can go out and hunt seals. And that's a genuine issue, the fact that there could be a bear hiding behind your snowmobile or behind your dog kennel. And this is what the people of Churchill have to live with every single day.
In Churchill, I'll be meeting the Polar Bear Alert Team, who initially chased problem bears out of town with smoke bombs and noisemakers. And I'll get a chance to meet local guide Caleb, who's going to take me on some very close polar bear encounters.
Look at that, like a proper sniff.
No, in the vehicle, please.
Move around behind the vehicle.
It's a cold morning in Churchill as winter storms begin to roll in from Hudson Bay. I'm meeting local guide and photographer Caleb, who's taking me out to track some of the bears waiting near town for the sea ice to freeze.
Niall, Caleb, how are you?
Good, mate. How you doing?
Nice to meet you, man.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Racing today.
It's a little chilly out there for sure.
Let's go find some bears.
Sounds good to me.
Is this the best time of day to see the bears? Just as the sun's about to rise?
It varies a lot, but early morning a lot of the time, yes, we get movement.
Caleb and I are scouting for any movement on the beaches. A distant, not so white form moving along the rocks or shoreline. Do they sleep through the night, or will they get up and move around?
No, they can move around a lot at night time. In fact, we see a lot of bears. That's when town is the most dangerous, is kind of the hours between 2 in the morning and 5 in the morning, when the traffic's died down, but the smells of town are still around. The bears.
Also, far fewer eyes, human eyes, to look for bears at that time. Got him. Head up, please. Yeah, there we are. He's got us.
He's looking right at you.
Yeah, he's sniffing the air. Unbelievable. First encounter we have, and it's a large bear walking down the beach. He's definitely intent on heading towards Churchill, but he's also checking the local surroundings for food and signs of the sea ice, his hunting grounds, freezing up. The other fascinating thing about bears is, because they live here in the cold, they have to thermoregulate the entire time. But polar bears have got such phenomenal thermoregulatory abilities that actually they often have to work to stay cool as opposed to working to stay warm, even in an environment where it's frequently -20, -30 below zero. Amazingly, polar bear's thermal system consists of a thick layer of insulating fat, created by eating seal blubber, a thick black layer that absorbs sunlight, a layer of short hair that contains heat, all topped by thick, longer hairs that are water resistant. You don't see a thermal signature if you're looking at them on a thermal camera. They just absorb all of the heat and it stays within their fur.
The first polar bear in the wild, eh?
First proper wild polar bear. This is just amazing, and I love the fact he's there, he's tucked up like this, keeping himself warm, but he's very, very aware of us. Head up, looking around, and then back, keeping warm again. Starting to get really, really greasy at the shore's edge. And once it freezes, the bears will then head out and spend the rest of the winter out on the ice, where they'll be hunting seals. And they'll stay there and they'll go into what you call a hyperphagic mode, where they just eat as much as they possibly can, especially around springtime when the seals are pupping. The bears will just eat, store up as much energy and as much fat as they possibly can, so that when the ice breaks up again around July, they can then survive the whole summer without eating. This young polar bear has just swum up near us, landed on an ice floe, and has begun doing what these bears love to do, drying and scratching themselves on rough surfaces to get rid of excess water. Having dry fur keeps them more insulated in the winter temperatures, which are about to descend on this land. This bear appears to be keeping an eye on a bigger one he spotted in the distance, foraging for food on the beach. And Caleb, rubber bullets and noisemakers at the ready, is keeping an eye on him too, and looking out for any other bears in our vicinity.
I've had about 11 years now on the ground experience with polar bears, and generally they're a very safe animal. They aren't overly interested in us most of the time. They have their own things going on. You know, they're here waiting for the bay to freeze so they can move north. We do get curious bears, and they're the ones that are a little bit more to be concerned about. It's not necessarily that they're aggressive or wanting to come up and do anything harmful, but because of their curiosity, they usually approach at much closer distances. And those are the ones that would tend to make me, move people back into the vehicles.
Bears are a giant paradox because they are unbelievably formidable predators. In the case of the polar bear, probably as formidable a predator as you've got anywhere on Earth. But they're also very, very intelligent, and they're very caring. So you'll see bears walking along the shore and then just find something to play with. They'll play with a stick, or they'll roll in the snow for a while. They'll put their head on the snow and push themselves along with the back legs as if they're just enjoying themselves. And that's a sign for me of a really higher plane of intelligence, when something can do something for fun, when an animal is behaving in a way that's not survival benefit, it's solely enjoyable for it. It's a sign of really high intelligence, which for me makes it even more important that people take a more progressive attitude to bear conservation. Coming up, I find out how a whole town gets mobilized around protecting kids trick-or-treating, and the time a real Halloween monster stepped out of the alley and attacked.
He was already on me, and then it was using my body as leverage to peel back my scalp. And so there was this moment where I thought, okay, this is the way that I died.
There aren't many places in the world where Halloween night not only means scores of costumed children hitting the streets, but also means protecting the youth from a force of nature. In this case, the polar bear. The whole town is mobilized. Polar Bear Alert will be patrolling, but also the local police and fire department.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, great stuff. Cheers, guys. We'll see you later. Enjoy your evening.
How does the fire department interact with Bear Alert and the other polar bear situations here in Churchill?
Our biggest one is this time of year during bear season. They assign us positions and roles, and we'll go out and we'll help keep the community safe and keep the bears away from the kids so they can go have an enjoyable time.
Evening. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Brilliant. C-3PO, look at you. Fantastic.
What Churchill is facing tonight is an onslaught of bears approaching from the river in the west and coming from the sea to the northeast, moving at will through the town and finding a lot of potential prey.
So that's the Bear Alert, guys, and in the background you can see the volunteer fire brigade. I was speaking to EJ earlier, and he's deployed his team all around the perimeter of the town as a first warning for any bears coming in. There's another Bear Alert vehicle there, and that's just part of it. There's also the police, there's obviously Bear Alert and the fire, and then there's all of the other members of town that have gathered to protect the children as they go out knocking on people's doors for trick or treat. It's an amazing, amazing thing to witness.
Kids from Churchill normally don't have the opportunity to go freely and play outside because of polar bears, and especially this time of the year. So it's a way for the community to, you know, put their guard down, and they can just be regular kids like everybody else in North America.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy Halloween, you guys.
And just out there are the fire service and bear patrol on the perimeter of town, because that's where the bay is. Hudson Bay is right there, and that's where the bears are congregating. So they're just making sure that nothing comes in, because this is the last time you want a bear marauding through town. And there's literally, well, dozens verging on hundreds of children excitedly screaming around the streets, dressed as dinosaurs. Because they're having to haze them. They're making big banging noises, setting off flares, and then if it comes to it, firing rubber bullets at them, just to make sure the bears keep their distance, keep out of the way of town while the kids are trick-or-treating. Evening. Happy Halloween. Are you guys on just like general bear patrol, or just if someone slips and has a bang, or?
Bear patrol, yep, just rovers.
Really? Have you heard any on the radio, any bears at the moment, or have they been all scared away?
Well, there's a couple, yeah.
So bear patrol got sent there to haze them?
Yeah, they found them.
Really? Wow. We've already heard from those paramedics that they've seen and scared away and hazed 2 polar bears this evening, which were at risk of coming into town, where dozens and dozens and dozens of children are out trick-or-treating.
Even with all this security, sometimes a bear can slip through. I had the chance to meet Erin, who only a few years ago found herself in a worst-case scenario one Halloween night.
Here, and then when we got to about this section here, my friend Nikki, she looked over this way and she said, "Oh my God, guys, there's a bear." And so our first reaction was to run. And then within like 3 what seemed to me like 3 steps, he was already on me. He passed my friend Nikki, actually like brushed against her, and then came around the back, kind of circled around the back, and then bit onto the back of my head. And then was using its paws to kind of press against my body, so it was kind of like smacking me and hitting me, and then it was using my body as leverage to peel back my scalp.
Oh, goodness me.
So I thought my only defense was to try to punch it in the snout, which is what I had heard was the most sensitive area of the bear. So I kind of just tried to punch overhead. I could see just the paws. He did drop me. So this little ball on the ground. And I remember looking up and seeing him towering above me, like on his back legs, and his front legs were up. And I thought, this is my moment to get away. But he was already, as I was thinking those things and scanning around, he was already coming back down. And then he picked me up from the shoulders, and then he started to swing me. So I guess kind of what they do with seals, where they try to break the neck. And so there was this moment where I thought, okay, this is the way that I die. This is where I die. And then all of a sudden I heard a voice, and it kind of shook me back into reality. And I thought, oh, there's still a chance. I can still get out of this. Someone's here.
The streets are quiet after Halloween night in Churchill, Manitoba. Returning home late, Erin Green finds herself bloodied and in the jaws of a powerful polar bear.
And I thought, oh, there's still a chance. I could still get out of this. Someone's here.
Her rescuer was neighbor Bill Ayot, who came out swinging.
At that moment, the bear dropped me, and so I kind of looked around and then saw the door was open, so I saw a glowing rectangle of light, and I just started running towards it. And then I actually tripped because I didn't realize that he had sliced my knee open. And I just ran straight into the house. And then I grabbed the telephone. I found a piece of mail that was on the table and told them the address that I was at, and they told me to calm down. And I
sounds like you were extraordinarily calm anyway. You found a bit of mail to tell them what addresses. That's really, really clear thinking.
I don't know, like an internal wisdom, of how to survive that instinct kind of just all came together.
Churchill is the only town in the world with a polar bear jail. While bears are only euthanized in extreme cases of attacks like Erin's, most problem bears are chased out of town. But repeat offenders are tranquilized and end up here before being released into the wild again.
Still moving, still tensing slightly. It's an unbelievable privilege to be here and be a part of this. It's a pretty unique program that they've got here in Churchill, where these bears, which are so-called problem bears, have been coming into town, potentially predating on children at Halloween, get taken by the Bear Patrol and stuck in this polar bear holding facility for as long as it takes until they're ready to release them. And they fly them out to the northwest and release them there, where hopefully they'll be sufficiently put off people not to come back into the community again.
Any of the bears that come into the holding facility, they'll stay for about 30 days. And what that does is that takes them away from that problematic behavior, whether it be that food conditioning or that human habituation. As well, especially this time of the year, it'll get that bear 30 days closer to the ice.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a great program. Not without controversy, but I think it's really a good thing that they're doing. Finding a way of coexisting. You can see that they're taking it really seriously. So Jeff's wearing his gun, and the other guys have been looking out, making sure there aren't any other bears coming in. Because they said that's a real risk when they bring the tranquilized polar bear out, that others could be around, come to investigate. But they're taking no chances. Here comes the chopper. Helicopter's going to pick up the bear. It's going to pick me up. Then we're going to fly out to the northwest and stick it back in the wild where it belongs. ice moves as it's coming in. Very strange. Yeah.
All this free-floating ice and stuff like that that's spewing out of the big rivers.
Yeah.
The currents will go counterclockwise, so they're all going to start stacking up on those western shores. So all the bears are working their way towards there because that's where they're going to capture their first seals of the year, because they haven't hunted seals since July.
We've come about 50 miles from Churchill, a long way to the north and the northwest. Probably far too far for that bear to go back to Churchill this season. At least that's the hope. So now we're going to give it a reversal agent so the tranquilizer wears off, and then it'll just be left alone. We'll take off and it'll wake up in its own time.
We are in bear country, right?
Yeah. Look at that. Fantastic.
All right.
Give me a shout if I can lend a hand.
Yep, no worries. We'll just get her out of the net first, okay? Simon, can you grab my shotgun, please? Okay, so I'm gonna roll her this way, and then I'm just gonna get you to pull the net from underneath, please.
Yeah.
Just pull the net out.
Oops, got it caught up in her teeth.
That's fine.
There we go.
Just hold up. Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Same as a human recovery position.
Yeah.
With the sedative, is she able to see at the moment?
Yeah, she can see everything, she can feel everything, she can smell, hear everything, except she's trapped. She can't really move.
This is a 22-year-old female.
22-year-old female, and the reason why we know she's 22 is because she's got ear tags, 2 of them, and she also has a corresponding lip tattoo on the inside.
Look at that. Yeah, interesting. So when was she caught?
She was captured on October the 3rd.
So day before my birthday.
She's getting to the end of her life cycle.
Natural
On average, our bears for the Western Hudson Bay population get to about 24 years old.
Okay. What kind of condition is she in comparison to a normal female of this age?
She's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark her with a green dot in the back.
Yeah.
So what this does, there's a couple of reasons we do this. One, it tells the program that we've handled that bear this year, so if she returns, I know she's got a big green dot, so I'm going to go recapture her and put her in the holding facility for longer. And as well, in points north, in the communities of Nunavut, and up there, they actually harvest polar bears still.
Okay, still.
So if they harvest a bear with a green dot on it, it just tells them that that bear's been handled by our program. It's got drug in its system. So.
You guys are very strict over harvesting in Manitoba.
Yeah, bears are protected under the Wildlife Act, Division 6, so nobody can harvest or basically disturb polar bears because they're protected. All right. So you see she's starting to move, right?
Absolutely.
So she's coming out of the drug a little bit. Yeah, her head will start to move, and then the back end she'll prop herself up, and then the back end will be the last to go. So.
Interesting. So, and that she'll be able to sit up and look around and take everything in?
Maybe.
In a while?
Yep.
In a couple of shots.
So she'll be good. Yeah, get your shots, and my average number of bear calls is about 250, and I'm sitting at about 100 and about 85 now. Okay. So, yeah.
Are you expecting a glut to come in the next couple of weeks?
Well, this is our busy time of the season. This is when they're really migrating. So, yesterday I had 5 bear calls, and so far this morning I think there's been 2. So.
Sadly, polar bear mothers are still teaching their young that Churchill may be a good place to find food.
If she teaches her children or her cubs that garbage is a viable food source, and other bad behaviors for wild bears, the next generation of polar bears are going to have difficulty as well.
takes a couple of years for young to wean. Mothers will stay with their cubs, protecting them and feeding them for that entire time. And that's an enormous amount of work that the bears have to do to keep their young in shape, because bears are expending a huge number of calories every day. So the mothers are having to fend off potentially aggressive male bears. They're also having to hunt seals and other things for their cubs and for themselves. And it's an enormous amount of work that they have to do. But without seals available to them, they must forage for grass and shrubs, and sometimes human garbage.
So I've come down to the local recycling plant. And behind me, this used to be an open bin, giant big waste deposit area. And in 2006, the Churchill Council decided to shut that because it was just acting as a magnet for bears, and unsurprisingly so. But still, inevitably, bears are attracted to this area because there's so much human activity and there must be the smell of waste. So behind me, you can see that the bear alert people have set up a trap to try and attract any errant bears that are walking around here. We've just got to be very careful every time you get out of the vehicle and the doors are open and the engine's running. But there are quite a few bear footprints. I've got quite big hands, and that's a lot bigger than I am. So this bear's come here and then headed on off the hill. The trap is just there. It obviously haven't taken the bait.
Because this is a typical attractant for bears that are working their way along the coastline. We're about half a mile south of the Hudson Bay coastline, so any of the bears that are working their way along those essentially highways for themselves, they're going to be pulled in because of the smell of the garbage. So if I'm able to capture a polar bear and put it in the holding facility without actually having to go out and dart it, and it get caught in a trap like this, it's a lot easier on the polar bear itself.
So these are the culvert traps that the polar bear alert team are using to trap up the bears and then transfer them to the holding facility. I'm just going to spring it so you can see how it works.
Thanks to Churchill's efforts, the flow of bears into the town has been reduced. But polar bear mothers maintain a strong bond with their cubs and continue to teach them how to patrol the beach pathways that lead to the faint scent of food. This pattern often takes them right to Jeff's polar bear alert team and gets them a pass straight to jail. The team will keep releasing them into the wild. But if the pattern sunk in, they may just return to town with potential disastrous results for bears and humans. Guide Caleb and I are heading out again to locate bears near Churchill, now eking out an existence on land as their seal hunting grounds on the sea ice remain liquid.
You called this Polar Bear Alley.
Yes.
Why the name?
It was dubbed that, I guess, probably by the researchers.
Yeah.
This is where they used to pick up bears. Actually, we just passed with the polar bear traps, the old wooden ones that were back there that were used by the researchers.
Yeah.
High bear traffic area here.
We've spotted something in the distance.
Give me a nod.
Caleb needs to do a quick walk around to check for bears hiding in the nearby rocks or grass. Then we see it, moving down the beach past an old whale meat drying rack in the distance. Even walking at 5 miles per hour, or 8 kilometers, this bear is deceptively quick.
We're standing back here right by the vehicles, but we're very conscious that a polar bear at full gallop could cover that distance to here in somewhere between 5 and 7 seconds, which gives me very little time to get in the vehicle itself, or would give Caleb very little time to shoot him with some buckshot. Rubber bullets in a shotgun cartridge, that would be very, very stinging on the forepaws. And that's what happens if they do get charged, if one gets a bit close. Someone like Caleb has to do that, haze it away, shooting it with some buckshot, then a cracker shot, then if worse comes to the worst, a slug. But thankfully, that almost never happens. But what does happen is that those guys get impatient and they come at you.
This surveyor underestimated the bear's speed and left his car door locked, resulting in a dangerous game of hide and seek. Changing trucks didn't help, and the bear attacked. Despite receiving 100 deep scratches to his head and body, the man escaped alive. Rule 1, leave doors open in polar bear country. Fortunately, our bear is more interested in the seaside lemongrass than chasing us. And we watch him eat this poor substitute for the rich seal blubber he really needs in time for the winter hunt. Because I'm a naturalist, I love to take photographs of wildlife, and when I'm close to animals, I want to get a picture of it for my walls. I'm always wanting to try and take that photograph, show it to my future children, my future grandchildren. I'm lucky enough in this situation that the bear is close enough to me for me to get a photograph of its head, and I can mount that on my wall, and for me that's a great trophy. The photograph of a polar bear's head on my wall is something that will make me happy. Finally, this bear, having eaten all the grass he can, beds down in a snow shelter, a safe haven from the wintry gusts that are beginning to freeze Hudson Bay. This morning we've had word that the bears have been close to town. But a winter storm has come in, making travel and visibility very difficult for bears and people. Along the way, we spot a plane wreck, decades old, where snow and lack of visibility played a key role in the crash.
So I've just left town and it's not even dawn, and we heard some cracker shell shots, which means that conservation are hazing a bear. And what we're expecting is that the bear will come this way, because they want to push it away from town, towards the coast, and then down the coast.
But our search soon takes us smack into some deep snowdrifts on the beach access road.
There's no way we're getting through that, unfortunately. That's about 2 feet deep and 25 meters long. Clear after that, but we just can't risk getting the vehicle snagged, especially in this weather, because it's cold. It's minus 14 now. Quite brutal. We wouldn't want to get stuck out here, surrounded by bears. So we're going to carry on down the coast, see what we can find.
Good, let's do it.
Our decision to turn back appears to have been a good one, as nearby we run into Caleb's fellow guides, stuck in deep snow.
Watch out for the rope, for the tension.
So it's unsurprising that someone's got stuck today, because there's just snowdrifts everywhere. But this is not the type of place you really want to get stuck. We're about 30 minutes drive out of Churchill, which is a long way. And this is where the highest densities of bear are living. Bear Alley is just down there. The bears will come looking.
As we resume our search, we get a tip about a bear that's supposed to be in a forest just up from the beach.
So if you see the little tree, the two little trees just down there, he's right next to the one on the right, just between that and the other one. Completely hunkered down, sheltering in, and basically drifted in.
It's fascinating to see polar bears sheltering from the cold weather, lying there, covering their faces with their paws, looking out, realizing the horrible weather's still there, hunkering down again, doing whatever they can to get out of the blizzard. Then there's a change in the weather, but a clear view doesn't necessarily mean you can always spot the bear. The whole coastline of Churchill is marked by these large rocks with crevices between them, and there's the sea, and there's the willows, and there's the ryegrass, or this beautiful lemongrass that you see across the beaches. And Polar bears can be hiding anywhere in those. An enormous polar bear can disappear into those rocks or disappear into those willows and could be right next to you without you realizing it. So you always have to be on your guard and always have to be aware. Next, we come face to face with the unpredictable nature of these bears. The largest land predator on Earth. I've been observing bears here all week, wandering up and down the coast, waiting for the ice to freeze, waiting for the ice to come in so they can then get out into Hudson Bay. But finding them isn't always that easy.
Looking at tracks, and sometimes it's just shapes and colors. Really, shapes, colors, and movement.
Something just doesn't quite fit the landscape. Yeah. Then, a slight bit of movement.
We spotted a young bear just on that side, about 250 meters away, coming this direction, so we backed round. There he is, there he is. Just appeared over the kelp, coming straight at us. Sniffing the air. We're directly upwind.
Very curious guy.
Very curious.
Still coming. Caleb has just said this might be a quick re-entry.
We'll move back around the vehicles. Move around behind the vehicles.
He is very inquisitive, this bear. Look at that. Take a proper sniff.
No. In the vehicle, please.
He's directly downwind of us, so our scent's going in.
Brake, brake, brake.
No! No! No!
I've witnessed charging behavior in bears many times. You know, you can tell when an animal's getting stressed out. They vocalize a little bit, they drop their heads down low and kind of look up at you. Even their body language in general is the same as any other kind of mammal or human. Young bear, which usually are the most curious and maybe slightly troubling, but we had 4 of them move in from east to west this morning, and this is the littlest of the 4.
Curiosity satisfied, the polar bear goes on his way, scouring the land for any scraps of food.
Caleb was taking that very, very seriously, and we had to get back in the vehicles quite quickly because the bear wasn't stopping. He spotted us from miles away like that, looking over, just kept on coming, kept on coming, kept on coming, and then slowed down, came towards us. Caleb, locked and loaded, ready to go. Don't want to take any chances. This is the largest predator on Earth. What a privilege. When I came to Churchill, I really didn't know what to expect. What I found was a community united around the issue of polar bear conservation and determined to find a way to coexist with the Arctic's top predator. Even those people that have suffered personal attacks and grievous injury seem to understand that the danger posed by the bears is just a fact of life here. With climate change, the future for polar bears and for coastal northern communities is far from certain. But I'm heartened to say that, at least for the time being, here in Manitoba, polar bears are in safe hands. But it is everyone's responsibility
to make sure that there's any kind of future for polar bears and for the Arctic as a whole.